Hello everyone, it is Sunday night, February 5th, 2017, and of course that is not New Comic Book Day. As a matter of fact, this is not even a comic book video. This is going to be a movie video. I stated that in the last video that, I've been stating in some videos that I'm going to do a movie video, and my subscribers have been saying, hey, when are you going to do that movie video? I saw the ones you've done in the past, I liked them, maybe do something else, so I thought, you know what? I just got finished watching the Super Bowl. Congratulations to New England. I am in no way a New England Patriots fan, but you got to give credit where credit is due, and they pulled an incredible comeback to win their 5th Super Bowl championship. So, tip of the hat to them. Congratulations. So, excuse me. We will go forward now with some videos that I enjoy. Now, when you do things like this, people always say, oh, I don't like that one, I don't like this one, and that's understandable. Everybody enjoys movies from the time that they grew up, or, toys, books, anything collectible is when you remember doing that as a kid. For me, that's going to be the mid-70s to the mid-80s, basically from elementary school to high school. So these are movies that I enjoy. Some you've probably heard of because they're iconic movies if you're a movie fan. Some you may not have heard of, and so my hope is that, if you haven't seen the movies or haven't heard of the movies, maybe you'll give it a shot. So, in no particular order, here we go. First movie on my list, Let the Right One In. This is a very good movie. It was redone. This is the European version of this movie, and the basic premise of this story is there is a young boy who lives with his mother in an apartment complex and gets picked on at school. Basically, he's bullied at school, and little girl moves in next door, and they become friends, and he wonders why he only sees her at night at this little playground area, and realizes later on that she's in fact a vampire. And of course, as a vampire, you're just going to stay where you are. So she's a child. She stays the same age, 12, 13 years old in that area. So it shows their friendship, how she gives him advice, things, how to protect himself and defend himself from that. And so if you haven't seen it, Let the Right One In. This is 2009. Of course, there was one that was done in 2010, American version, but I prefer this one. The European version is a lot darker and just a much better storyline. Now, with movies like that, you are going to have to read the subtitles because that's the best way to watch a foreign movie. Another movie that I didn't pull out of my collection, I can't seem to find it, so I think maybe my son took it to watch it, is a movie called I Saw the Devil. It is a Korean movie about a serial killer who had killed a woman, and the woman's fiance is some type of a government agent and just hunts him down, finds him, does things to him. It's got fantastic twists in the movie, great storylines, and it's just you're on the edge of your seat in that movie. Some of the violence is extremely graphic, so it might bother some people out there. So that's another one. It's I Saw the Devil. It is a Korean movie, and again, another one you have to read the subtitles on. Some people don't like that stuff. I do, and so if you haven't seen either one of those two movies, take a look at it. My all-time favorite movie, I make no bones about it, John Carpenter's Halloween. I saw this movie for the first time in 1979, and the reason I love this movie so much, I think, is that, one, it's super scary when you're a kid especially, and it still gives you it's creepy the way it was filmed, but there's no blood in this movie. It was a scary movie that relied on shadows, cameras, and soundtrack to build up the suspense and the overall scary aspect of this movie. And so I love it. Halloween, of course, Jamie Lee Curtis. I'm a huge Jamie Lee Curtis fan. Obviously, I got a Jamie Lee Curtis tattoo on my arm from Halloween. So I just love that movie. I'm sure everybody out there has seen this movie. Considered one of the greatest horror movies ever made. Halloween. Night of the Comet. 1984. Now, movies like this I like because they show old shopping malls and things that I remember, growing up. And this is a movie about a comet that goes through the Earth's atmosphere and turns people into basically dust. And if you happen to be protected when the comet went overhead, you survived. But the people who may have been exposed a little bit become kind of like zombies. You can kind of see a little thing right there with the guy in the middle. Dark Knight of the Comet, really good movie. And the girl here plays one of the main characters, is the cheerleader from Fast Times at Ridgemont High at the pep rally. And so you'll probably know who she is. She was also in Chopping Mall for that. So right there, Dark Knight of the Comet, or Night of the Comet, excuse me. Manhunter, made for TV, a Michael Mann movie, 1986. This is the first appearance of television for Hannibal Lecter. This is, of course, William Peterson from CSI fame, who plays an FBI agent who is looking for the killer. Right there. Kind of the early stages of a Silence of the Lambs type movie. Again, made for television, so the violence isn't really weird. And if you know anything about Michael Mann, of course, from Miami Vice, really good soundtracks, lots of color in his filming. Another movie he did, which is To Live and Die in L.A., with William Dafoe about a counterfeiter, which also has, by the way, William Peterson in it, filmed in, obviously, Los Angeles, about a counterfeiter. So that's another good movie. It uses good soundtracks, a lot of, color and, film work. So Manhunter and To Live and Die in L.A. Nightmare on Elm Street, the original. Only the original. The reason this movie made an impact on me is because this was the first time anybody really used a character, Freddy Krueger, that came in your sleep and got you in your sleep. And of course, this movie came out when I was in high school. And what does a high school senior do, or high school kids do? They sleep a lot. So the premise of someone who will come and get you in your sleep was really kind of freaky for a lot of people at that time. So, and it's really good. It's dark. It's really not joking around. It's not like the Freddy's later on. First appearance of Johnny Depp. First movie Johnny Depp did. Really good movie. Campy movie, but I love it. Killer Clowns from Outer Space. Another one from the 80s. How can you not love a big top spaceship and people wrapped in cotton candy? The clowns are also really wicked looking. And there's some good scenes in it, but it's a campy movie. It's a fun movie. Good soundtrack. And you know what? It's just a movie that's fun to watch. I always get a laugh at it. Killer Clowns from Outer Space. One of my all-time favorite movies, Marlon Brando, On the Waterfront. This is the Criterion version of this, the Criterion Collection version of this movie. I'm a real big Marlon Brando fan, especially stuff he did in the 50s, which is basically On the Waterfront, Streetcar Named Desire, Young Lions, things of that nature. But this movie is the first movie that really hit the nerve as it relates to unions. And this follows Marlon Brando's character. A friend of his gets killed, and he tries to, find out what's going on, infiltrate the waterfront unions, and just kind of blow the whistle on the corruption that's going on down there. This is Elia Kazan, and who directed it. And of course, the famous scene where he's in the back of the cab with his brother. I could have been a contender, I could have been somebody, but instead I'm a nothing. So that's a great movie. I'm sure a lot of you have probably seen it, On the Waterfront. James Caan movie, I want to say 75, Rollerball. This is the Twilight Time version of it. Rollerball is a really good movie for me. Futuristic, takes place in the future, and apparently the premise of this is the world is run by big business, corporations, and the countries don't have armies anymore. They have rollerball teams. And it is basically like roller derby with motorcycles and spikes, and they shoot a big metal ball out, and you got to score points. And the premise of the story is that James Caan's character is a person named Jonathan E., and he is the big, athlete in the world, the real popular person. And he has got to the point where he is more popular than the big business, so big business has to get rid of him because they don't want anybody being more popular than they are. So Rollerball, really good. Saturday Night Fever. This is what I call a guilty pleasure. I just love this movie. I love the whole, look of New York in the 70s, the old disco era, the clothes. It's just a really good movie. John Travolta, Saturday Night Fever. 1969, Midnight Cowboy, John Voight, Dustin Hoffman. This movie was controversial. It did win Best Picture, Academy Award for Best Picture. And you can actually look at it. When it first got released, it was an X rating. It wasn't an X rating because of the gratuitous sex. It was an X rating because it dealt with drugs, male hustling, just things of that nature. Drug use, which, in the 60s really wasn't shown on the big screen at all. So it was a very controversial movie, very well done, very sad movie right there, Midnight Cowboy. Another one of my all-time favorite movies. This is from 1930. This is All Quiet on the Western Front. And this movie has been remade a ton of times. This is the original German version of the movie. And the reason I like this movie is because it shows World War I through the eyes of German soldiers. And it doesn't sugarcoat anything. War's crappy. Bad things happen. It's a horrible setup. And this movie does all of that right there. All Quiet on the Western Front. I think I have time for a couple more movies, so let's hit a couple here. Probably my all-time favorite gangster movie. I've mentioned this in other videos. James Cagney, Pat O'Brien, Angels with Dirty Faces. This movie is... I can watch this movie every day and never get tired of it. James Cagney plays a character, Rocky Sullivan, who goes back to his old neighborhood after spending time in prison and just kind of gets caught up again, where you can see his character is a really good guy, but he's a gangster. He's a gangster, bottom line. And his friend Pat O'Brien, who they grew up with together as a priest, and this has a very early appearance of Humphrey Bogart. And the second appearance of the Dead End Kids, where if you watched anything from the 30s, you know who the Dead End Kids are. So we'll do two more. That's what I have time for on this video. 1931, Scarface with Paul Muni. Now, everybody knows the 1980 version of Scarface. That is a remake of this movie from Scarface. The difference is, instead of a Cuban immigrant who sells cocaine, Paul Muni is an Italian immigrant who bootlegs and becomes really good. Now, for the time, this movie was very controversial because of the violence it showed for 1931. Showed gangsters in a really bad light. And Turner Classic Movies shows this movie all the time, and it's rated extremely high. It's produced by Howard Hughes and directed by Howard Hawks. And again, if you like gangster movies, give this one a try. Right there, Scarface, Paul Muni, 1931. And the last movie we'll talk about is another movie that I really like. If you are a fan of Gary Oldman, this is his first movie. This is Sid and Nancy. Of course, Gary Oldman plays Sex Pistols bassist Sid Vicious in this movie, and his girlfriend, Nancy Spungen. It's a very sad movie. It shows, how Sid is kind of pulled in by his infatuation and love for Nancy Spungen, who's a heroin addict, and she gets him addicted to heroin. And again, there's no glamour in this movie. This is a depressing movie. It's a very sad movie at the end, a very sad commentary on what addiction can do to you. And so there it is right there. And there's also, interesting in this, a very small cameo appearance by a very young and very fat Courtney Love. So, Sid and Nancy. So those are just some real quick movies right there. I'm going to do another version. Give me the genre that you want me to do. Westerns or horror movies, drama, suspense, modern, old, whatever you want. Shoot me a couple of lines. If you enjoyed the movie things, I'll do a lot more of these in the future. Just tell me what you want. And if you're not a subscriber, please subscribe. So again, it was kind of a short video. I showed you basically, some of my favorite movies that I enjoy watching. I hope you liked the video, but as always, if you didn't, nothing I can do for you. Have a great night.